My name is Danielle Carter. I'm from a small town in Ohio where trust is built over decades, and breaking it can get you shunned faster than you can blink. In places like mine, we don't just share neighbors. We share histories, Sunday dinners, and secrets we assume will never leave the family. For as long as I can remember, my brother Jason and I were inseparable. He was 4 years older, always the protector, the one who walked me to the bus stop, the one who taught me how to ride a bike, the one who'd show up in his beat-up Chevy if I needed a ride at 2 a.m. I never doubted him. Ever. And then there was Mark. He came into my life at 26 when I thought I'd finally figured out the kind of man I deserved. He was charming without trying, steady without being boring, and when he laughed, it was the kind of laugh that made everyone else in the room join in. He fit with me and with my family. My parents liked him, my friends liked him, and Jason? Well, Jason seemed to like him a lot. At first, I thought that was a blessing. I mean, how many people can say their brother and boyfriend actually get along? They'd talk cars, sports, swap jokes about me, which I let slide because, siblings. But then a bond between them started to feel different. It was little things at first. I'd walk into the living room and see Jason's hand on Mark's shoulder, lingering just a beat too long. I'd notice text messages between them that had no context, things like, "See you later" at odd hours, or a single emoji that made no sense to me. I told myself I was overthinking. That's what you do when you trust people. You excuse things, but trust can be a slow poison when it's misplaced. There was this one night, maybe 3 months before it all came to a head, when Jason called me out of nowhere, asking if Mark could help him fix his motorcycle. I said sure. The next morning, Mark's clothes from the day before were still in a crumpled pile in our laundry basket, but when I asked how late they'd worked, he got vague. "Real late," he said, already walking out of the room. I didn't push. I didn't want to be that paranoid girlfriend, and besides, Jason was family. But on August 14th, everything shifted. I'd been at work all day, no calls or texts from Mark, which wasn't completely unusual, but still, it sat wrong. On the drive home, I decided to stop by Jason's place, figuring maybe they were hanging out there. When I pulled up, his truck was in the driveway, the house dark except for a light in the back. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. That's when I remembered. I still had a spare key from when I used to water his plants. The second I stepped inside, I felt it. The air was heavy. I froze in the hallway, my hand on the wall, feeling my pulse in my fingertips. I moved closer. Each step sounded like it echoed in my own head. The bedroom door was halfway shut, and there was a slice of light spilling into the hall. I could see shadows moving, hear the rustle of sheets. When I pushed the door open, time didn't just slow. It felt like it shattered. Mark's back was to me. Jason was facing me, but his eyes darted away like I wasn't even real. My own brother wouldn't look at me. My voice caught in my throat, but nothing came out. I just stood there, taking in every detail. The way the sheets were tangled, the smell of Mark's cologne in the air, Jason's hand resting where it had no right to be. They didn't scramble to explain. They didn't even say my name. It was as if they were waiting for me to leave so they could pretend it hadn't happened. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I turned, walked out, and shut the door behind me. But inside, something had been lit. Something I wasn't going to put out until they both understood exactly what they'd taken from me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a wound cut by the two people I trusted most in the world, and wounds like that don't heal by themselves. What I did next, it wasn't about pettiness, it wasn't about jealousy, it was about making sure Jason and Mark would never, ever forget that night. And trust me, they haven't. We'd been together for 7 years. 7 years of shared rent, shared passwords, shared dreams. Mark wasn't just my boyfriend. He was the man I thought I'd marry. We talked about the kind of house we'd buy one day, the road trips we'd take, even the baby names we liked. He was there for every milestone. The promotion I got at work, my dad's 60th birthday, the time my old car finally gave out and we spent an entire Saturday test driving beat-up secondhand ones until we found a rusty blue Honda that barely made it home. We laughed about it for weeks, calling it Old Faithful, even though we knew it could break down any second. I thought I knew everything about him. The way he took his coffee, the songs he sang in the shower, the way he'd squeeze my hand twice in a crowd to tell me he loved me without saying a word. And Jason? My brother wasn't just family. He was my anchor. Growing up, if a guy so much as made me cry, Jason was the first one to pull up in his truck, ready to set things straight. He was the one who taught Mark how to gut a fish, who called him brother, long before there was any legal reason to. The two of them even had their own inside jokes. They'd quote old action movies in accents so bad I'd groan every time. The three of us, we were solid. The kind of solid you don't question. But looking back, I can see the cracks. Small, almost invisible, but there. Mark started taking his phone everywhere, to the kitchen, to the bathroom, even to the garage. He said it was for work. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Jason began showing up at our place unannounced. Sometimes it was for a beer, sometimes to borrow tools, sometimes for no reason at all. I'd find them in the backyard, laughing at something I wasn't part of. When I asked what was so funny, they'd just say, "Inside joke." I didn't push. I trusted them. There was the time I came home early from a girls' weekend with my best friend, Emma, and found Jason's hoodie on the back of our couch. He didn't even live in our neighborhood. Mark said Jason had stopped by to watch a game. I nodded, smiled, and went to unpack, because that's what trust looks like. You don't cross-examine the people you love. The last time I remember feeling completely safe with both of them was at my parents' barbecue that June. Jason was manning the grill, Mark was tossing a football with my nephews, and I was sitting on the porch with a glass of iced tea, thinking about how lucky I was. I even told my mom, I don't think life can get better than this. If I had known what was already happening behind my back, I would have swallowed those words. But in that moment, all I saw were the two men I loved most, one by blood, one by choice, standing side by side, smiling. And I had no idea that smile was the biggest lie I'd ever believe. It didn't happen all at once. The change was gradual, so subtle that I could almost convince myself nothing was wrong. At first it was Mark working late more often. He'd call just before dinner, his voice apologetic but rushed. Big project came in, he'd say, "Don't wait up," and I didn't. I trusted him. I'd leave his plate covered in the fridge, and the next morning he'd thank me with a kiss on the forehead, smelling faintly of beer, not office air. Jason, meanwhile, seemed busier than usual too. He said he was helping a friend remodel a basement, which sounded like him, always finding a project to keep his hands busy. But when I asked who the friend was, he dodged the question. I let it go. It felt harmless at the time. Then came the first real breadcrumb. One Friday night, Mark told me he was meeting the guys at a bar downtown to watch the game. I decided to have a quiet night in. Pajamas, leftover Chinese, bad reality TV. Around 9:30, I got a craving for ice cream and figured I'd grab some from the 24-hour store. The quickest route took me past Jason's street. That's when I saw it. Parked 2 houses down from Jason's driveway, Mark's car. I slowed, my eyes scanning for some logical reason. Maybe he'd stopped by to borrow something. Maybe the guys were all meeting there first. But when I saw Jason's porch light on and shadows moving behind his curtains, my stomach tightened. I almost knocked on the door right then, but I told myself not to be ridiculous, not to be that girlfriend. The next morning, Mark was chipper, almost too chipper. He told me the guys had got a little carried away, stayed out late, and crashed at a buddy's. He didn't mention Jason, and I didn't mention what I'd seen. But from that day forward, I started noticing things I'd missed before. Jason texting me less, but Mark's phone lighting up with messages he'd turn away from me to read. Mark taking longer showers, emerging with his hair damp but his phone mysteriously absent from the bathroom counter. Then there was the social media post. Jason had uploaded a blurry picture from what he claimed was a guy's poker night. In the corner of the frame, barely visible, was the sleeve of a jacket I knew wasn't his. It was Mark's, the one I'd bought him last Christmas. I stared at that picture longer than I want to admit. It could have meant nothing, but in my gut, it meant everything. Still, I didn't confront either of them, not yet. Because sometimes when you think you see the truth, you have to wait. You have to let it reveal itself, piece by piece, until there's no way for them to lie their way out of it. And the truth was coming. I could feel it, like a storm just over the horizon. It happened on a Thursday night. Not the kind of night you expect your whole life to split open. I'd gotten off work earlier than usual. My last meeting was canceled, and I remember thinking how nice it would be to surprise Mark with takeout from his favorite place. I called him on the drive home. No answer. I texted. No reply. I told myself maybe he was still in a meeting. But halfway home, a thought crept in. One I didn't want. One I'd been pushing down for weeks. Instead of turning toward our apartment, I kept driving, toward Jason's street. When I pulled up, the first thing I noticed was the faint glow of light from his upstairs bedroom window. His truck was in the driveway, and there, tucked in the shadows, like it belonged, was Mark's car. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I told myself there had to be a reason. I told myself this could still be nothing. But my chest felt heavy, each breath shorter than the last. I walked up the driveway, the cold air biting at my skin. My hands shook as I reached for the door, and I realized I was gripping the spare key so tightly it left a mark in my palm. Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. I could hear my own heartbeat, fast and uneven. Then, faint voices, a low laugh, Mark's, followed by Jason's. I moved down the hallway, each step deliberate. My legs felt heavy, like I was wading through water, but my mind was moving too fast, scanning every possibility, every excuse, every way this could be harmless. The bedroom door was half closed. A thin strip of light spilled into the hall. I pushed it open. Time slowed to something unnatural. Mark's back was to me, bare skin against tangled sheets. Jason was sitting up, the blanket pulled halfway over him, his eyes locked on mine for a split second before darting away. They froze. No words, no movement, just the weight of the air pressing in on all of us. Jason's hand gripped the blanket tighter, pulling it up. Mark turned slightly, his face draining of color the moment he realized I was there. I could hear the hum of the ceiling fan, the faint tick of Jason's clock, my own breathing, loud in my ears. I didn't speak, not at first. I just looked at them, really looked, because I wanted to burn this image into my memory. Every detail, the way Mark couldn't hold my gaze, the way Jason swallowed hard, like words were stuck in his throat. Finally, Mark stammered, "Danielle, it's not..." His voice cracked, and he didn't finish the sentence. Jason didn't even try. The silence stretched, long enough to feel like an answer in itself. I stepped back, my fingers curling into fists, my pulse roaring in my ears. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just turned. I don't remember walking down the driveway, but I remember the cold, how it bit into my skin, how it made my eyes water even before the tears came. I got in my car, shut the door, and just sat there with my hands gripping the steering wheel. My heart was still pounding, but it wasn't from shock anymore. It was from something heavier, something final. I didn't go home that night. I drove aimlessly for hours, the takeout bag still sitting on the passenger seat, untouched. Every streetlight felt too bright, every song on the radio too loud. I ended up at a gas station off the highway, sitting in the parking lot until the sky turned the dull gray of early morning. When I finally went back to the apartment, Mark's keys were gone from the hook by the door. His toothbrush, his jacket, half his clothes, gone. No note. No explanation. Just empty spaces where he'd been. Jason didn't call. He didn't text. Days passed, then weeks. Family dinners were canceled without explanation. My parents didn't know the truth at first. All they knew was that I stopped showing up when Jason was there. Eventually, I told my mother. She cried like she'd lost both her children in one day. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was losing two people at once. Mark had been my partner, my safe place. Jason had been my protector, my blood. And in a single night, they became strangers I couldn't bear to look at. The worst part wasn't even what they did. It was how quickly I vanished from their lives afterward, and how easily they seemed to let me. No grand apologies, no fights for redemption, just silence. And that silence told me everything I needed to know about who they really were. I wish I could say I healed quickly, that I moved on and never looked back. But the truth is, something like that doesn't just break your trust. It rewrites it. It changes the way you look at people, the way you let them in. Still, as much as they took from me that night, they also gave me something back. A reason to stand taller. A reason to make sure they never forgot the choice they made. And believe me, they haven't. So that's my story. That's how I lost my partner and my brother in the same breath. How two people who claimed to love me proved in one night that loyalty meant nothing to them. I've replayed that moment in my head more times than I can count. The sound of their voices from down the hall, the way Jason's eyes wouldn't meet mine, the way Mark's mouth opened like he was about to speak, but no words came out. Sometimes I wonder if it would have hurt less if they just told me, if they'd looked me in the eye before crossing that line. Maybe then I could have understood, even if I never forgave. Other times, I think about all the years before it happened. The laughter, the road trips, the family barbecues. Were those moments ever real? Or were they just the setup for the ending I didn't see coming? I'm still figuring out how to carry that kind of loss. How to live in a world where the two people I trusted most are just memories I try not to touch. And maybe that's why I'm telling you this now, because I need to know, if you were in my place, standing in that doorway, watching the truth unfold in front of you, what would you have done? Would you forgive? Would you try to hold on to the people who broke you? Or would you walk away forever, even if it meant losing everything you thought you had? I'm not looking for easy answers. I just want to know how you see it. So tell me, leave your thoughts, share your stories, because trust me, betrayal like this doesn't just happen to me. And if you think you've heard the worst of it, you haven't. Not yet.